2009 Ambassadorial Scholar, sponsored by District 7390 in Central Pennsylvania, visiting District 1080 in East England. So we're going to talk just a little bit about the process because I have tons of pictures from my year abroad that are far more interesting. The Ambassadorial Scholarship Program is, I believe, the largest privately funded scholarship program in the world. It exchanges about 800 people from all over the world to all over the world each year. Currently, it is funding at $26,000 for an academic year, and that's it. You can't renew it. When I went, it was $23,000, so it has gone up. And they'd like you to study in a field of study with a strong humanitarian impact. Think about that creatively. It doesn't necessarily have to be development or international studies. You have to think about how what you do is important to sort of goodwill and fellowship the world over. So you can really make a case for just about anything if you can see how what you do could fit into a much larger picture of cultural understanding, of alleviating poverty, of creating sustainable structures that could improve life elsewhere, or bring back to your native country a deeper understanding that would somehow forward relations with other nations. So it doesn't have to be specifically development or something like that. The application process is lengthy. You need to start it about 18 months before you want to go. So on a traditional academic year system, you might want to think about it in fall of your junior year. You'd be applying in the spring. There is a very long application that you will fill out. It's 3 essays, a brief autobiography, a little bit about who you are and your experiences, a detailed statement of intent. That's where you make your case for why you're a great candidate for this and you fit well with the goals of the program. And then a list. One page is essentially your resume or your CV. If you are applying to go to a country that does not speak your native language, you do need to translate your application and get certification from a language instructor that you have enough competency in the language to be able to benefit from the experience. And you'll need 2 recommendations, your transcripts, otherwise it's pretty standard like that. You're going to apply at your local level. Sorry, let me back up. I keep forgetting to mention this. You pick 5 schools that you're willing to go to in 3 countries, and you list them on the application. And I believe they are ranked, so 1 through 5, 1 being your preference. And what happens is if you are selected at your local level and you go on to the national level, Rotary picks for you where you go. I believe the idea behind this is so that of the 800 people exchanging, 750 of them aren't all in London. So if you want to go to Uganda, if you want to go to Southeast Asia, your chances of getting your first choice are higher. I got my first choice because I picked Norwich. So while I went to England, which is a popular destination, I was the only ambassadorial scholar at my school because it was kind of out in the middle of nowhere. I'll show you on a map later. So the idea is kind of think about where you want to go. And again, think creatively. Don't just go to Paris because you've heard of it. Look at the universities, look at the areas. I had a great experience not being in a major city because you actually get to meet the local people. Okay, so now you've completed your application, you've submitted it to your club, you've been assigned someone with your club, a sponsor, and you find your club if you don't already have an interaction with one by Googling it, searching online for your district and getting connected through your district to your local club, either local to your university or local to your permanent address. And they will guide you through the next steps. Some have done this many, many times before. Some are totally new to it and never sponsored anybody before. That's where it would be great for you to reach out to someone like me, to a former ambassadorial scholar, either from your university or from your district, to get some guidance. So the next step, and for me that next step happened in the summer, so about 4 months later, they bring me in for an interview. And my interview was very overwhelming. It was a big rectangular table with about 4 people, 3 people, 4 people, and me in the hot seat. And they've all read your application, and they sit you down and they want to talk to you. Now what they're trying to find out is not, are you going to do the most creative academic project that they've ever heard of, but will you be a good cultural ambassador? Are you someone who can think on your feet? Are you someone who can speak in front of an audience? And are you going to benefit from exchanging somewhere else and being an ambassador from your district to another district? So they're going to ask tough questions like, what's your biggest fear about going abroad? How would you handle, questions about the war in Iraq? How would you handle, questions about your opinion of your president? Things like that. And they want you to be candid because they're going to know whether you are giving your canned responses or whether you're actually being genuine and thinking on your feet. Because the idea is not that you say some pre-packaged Rotary-approved thing, but that you find ways to communicate your opinions in ways that don't alienate other people, that actually bridge whatever cultural divide there is and bring you, to a space where you can talk and work through these things. You find out pretty quickly after the interview whether your district has selected you. Districts have different amounts of funding. Some districts might not have this program. My district had enough funding for 2 spaces. After that, when you find out if you've gotten it, your application goes to national, and then you wait until national has all of the applications, and then they tell you when you get to go. And they give you a whole package, and you get a letter that says, Katie is a funded scholar. You send that to the university that you're applying to, and generally they accept you because you're paid for it, and you're not going to be a burden on them. And that's just a normal grad school application. As you get closer to going, you're going to get more involved with your Rotary sponsor, both at your district level and through national, who's going to kind of guide the process. There's a lot of autonomy. You kind of have to know what you're looking for. Someone's not going to hold your hand and say, oh, Johnny, you need a visa to go to this country. You need to have done that research, and know your timeline. You are an adult here. This is not necessarily the same guidance you might have had in an undergraduate study abroad program. You are on your own. You have to find your own housing. They will do an outbound orientation for you, where they do general things. You learn about Rotary, how to deal with culture shock. You talk to other people who've been there. But it really is a very independent experience. And when you get off the plane, generally there's nobody there to greet you. So it's not like undergraduate study abroad. So it's a long process. You want a good mentor through the process, but the results on the other end are fantastic. So I exchanged to Arch, which is in that red section on the map, and if you can see it, it's right smack in the middle of the East Anglia region, Norfolk, is the county, and I believe geographically you're closer to Amsterdam than to London at that point. Can't see on the map, but it's about a 35-minute flight from Schiphol to the Norwich airport. Very rural, very much like central Pennsylvania, actually, rolling farmland. So a little bit more about where I was. These are just some pictures. The Canaries are the football team of choice, and they're rather tragic. I don't believe they've won, years. There's a cathedral that was built in 1080 in the center of town, which is kind of mind-boggling to an American whose country's about 200 and change. So, a gorgeous little market town, has a Norman castle that's about 1,000 years old, as well as beautiful parks. Near the school is Eaton Park, where I'd like to go to run. You can see the city hall. Tiny little town, and the university that I attended is the University of East Anglia. University of East Anglia was a university that was created out of government spending following the Second World War. They hired some cutting-edge Scandinavian architect to make a gorgeous university. What they got was a cinder block in the middle of Rhodes. So it's gorgeous, lakes and marshes and fields, and it's entirely concrete. It's also one of the best places to do international research in American studies, which is how I ended up there. A wonderful school. I highly recommend looking at it. They have programs and everything. I think they're one of the leading places if you're doing research on global warming now. So really, a really cool school, completely ugly, but in an otherwise gorgeous setting. So you're assigned a Rotary host when you get on the ground. You don't live with them. They don't pick you up at the airport unless you ask them to. These are the people who are your liaison to your local district. So mine were Barry and Glennis Furnace. Barry is an Anglican priest, and he worked at the cathedral in their publications department, in addition to having his own church. They were absolutely fantastic. They took me all over. This is a picture of us at a Christmas spectacular in Thetford, where apparently you have to wait years in advance to get tickets, and they got 3, and it's, if you can imagine, like the Rockettes, and it was unbelievable. So they were fabulous. They took me all over, and they took me, I'm sorry, there's a lot of pictures, so it takes forever. This slide to change. They took me on all my club visits. So part of the Scholarship is singing for your supper. You are not just there to study, you are there equally to be a cultural ambassador, to be ambassador of goodwill. So you have to make club visits. The scholarship